Can you hear me? You can. Nice. So the talk is titled Data Pipelines for Small, Messy, and Tedious Data. I'm Vladislav. Hi. Nice to be here. And first of all, I'd like to tell you what it's about. So, are you right? You know, there's the topic of big data. It's pretty fascinating, and arguably it's a good problem to have. What I noticed is most companies don't have big data problems. Big surprise. They're not quite there yet, and you should not start at this level even if you've got a huge chunk of data lying around, in my opinion. So this talk is for you if you're either at a startup, you start a growing company, or you're trying to establish a data team as a CDO, CAO, or head of BI. My goal here is I want you to go away with something actionable. I want you to get results. I want you to be better off afterwards. And you know, when I was designing this talk first for a conference in the beginning of this year, I was thinking about, yes, I'm going to talk about data pipelines and tools because, you know, that's what you think about. And then I thought about what I was doing for my clients and decided not to focus on tech anymore because this is not the most important part. You know, when you talk about small, messy, and tedious to handle data, there's a lot of ugliness hidden in the tech and the solutions, but you shouldn't start there. You will not get good results if you say, I need to use technology X in way Y, and then like everything is solved. It just isn't, and please don't. So if you're a company, what you want to do is you want to reduce risk. You want to do something which brings you value, and if you have this, you can continue. So how do you reduce risk? How do you get better results? You need to focus on what matters, and it's not with tools. You know, you might think dashboards or some fancy stuff is good, but actually it's just tactics, and I want to go one step above. I want to start with a big picture. So my point is, and my main point of this talk actually is, if you start thinking about data pipelines, building them, designing them, you should start with the business. Focus on the business, understand it, and move from there. So why am I talking about this? How did I come to this? I've got a background in machine learning and data stuff. I've been working in DevOps. Recently, I've been running a data engineering consulting business. You can find it at datapipelinearchitect.com. And right now I'm co-founding a startup. It's called Pivii Technologies. We're working on artificial intelligence for content marketing, deep learning, machine learning, all this good stuff is in there. And the website is pivii.co. And I'm really fascinated about data plumbing because it connects my passions for data and automation. So what I was focusing on when I was working with clients was a really small niche. I really liked the talk right before this one, the main hall. I was focusing on working with mobile marketing agencies. It's like companies who work with mobile development agencies and bring their stuff online, bring it to the market. And they don't have huge data, but it gets very messy. Like you've got lots of marketplaces, you've got lots of clients, you've got lots of different platforms. And you really can create value with the low-hanging fruits. You can make their life easier. You can help them to get the next bigger client on board and not go crazy in the process, not lose clients because you can't process the data fast enough. And I've seen the best results for people who approach this thing from the side. They got in touch with me after they had a prototype. They had created value. They had something which worked, but it was really broken, and it was painful, but it was already working, and people were relying on it. So I've seen this pattern over and over, and they were at the point that they had something, and they were having the pain of money being wasted and time. So this is why I would advise just start organically, and afterwards think about how to do better and where to go from there. Focus on the business value. You need to build something which creates something visible, measurable, or get close to it. A prototype will do. So I would like to make a detour, I would start with the mindset, not considering data plumbing in isolation, and, just jump to the business side. Lucky enough, I would like to start with something completely different, not from a data side. Let's go to sword fighting. This one is Miyamoto Musashi, and don't worry, I'm not going snow crash on you. A very accomplished gentleman lived a while ago, doesn't have anything to do with data, but he had very particular insights in his field as a samurai sword master. He taught people, and in one of his books, the Book of Five Rings, there's a terrific quote. This is one of those books where you go and you read one passage, and then you just lay the book down for the day and think about it, and then maybe come back the other day. So he wrote, the primary thing when you take a sword in your hands is your intention to cut the enemy, whatever it means. Whenever you parry, hit, spring, strike, or touch the enemy's cutting sword, you must cut the enemy in the same movement. It is essential to attain this. If you think only of hitting, springing, striking, or touching the enemy, you will not be able to actually cut him. More than anything, you must be thinking of carrying your movement through to cutting him. You must thoroughly research this. And it seems so straightforward, like you're there with a sword, you're there to cut the guy, right? Well, apparently it's such a painful point that people were always forgetting. His pupils were not very focused on cutting the other person with their sword, despite it being so obvious. And because of this, the teacher was frustrated. The results suffered, and he wrote a book, and in this book were these few sentences which depicted how important it is to focus on cutting the enemy. So from this, I would make a jump to data, namely, let's take this mindset of having a goal in mind and doing everything towards this goal and apply it to the data. So in my understanding, the core advice is to attain, cultivate, and apply a goal-oriented mindset. And every step you take should aim towards this goal. This should bring you a bit closer to the path of success. So in particular, what this means for me is when working with company data, like before starting a project, you should understand what you want to achieve. You want to know what the goal is. And then from then on, you should aim at creating a positive impact for the business. Like, just make it a goal. Just make it something you aim towards in every meeting, in every discussion of technology. So how do you go there? And I would like to share my approach towards working with clients. I think you can just take this and apply it to your situation. Like, what I did was, first of all, you need to understand the business, and the business is the people. So you need to talk a lot. You need to listen a lot. But this will help you afterwards. And after you understood the people and the business, you can dive into processes and maybe into technology. And from then, you just learn and revise. You build something, you learn, you build something better. So what did I do when I was working with clients? First of all, the first step was, before I start working with somebody, you want to qualify the project. Like, is this something where you can create value? Is this something where your skills and your knowledge can fit the goal? When you have established this one, you can start learning. For me, it was conversations with people. I will go into detail later on. And you just find out all the context around the data, all the context about what you're trying to create. Like, what are the problems right now? What are they aiming towards? What keeps the CEO up at night? Stuff like this. And you just learn as much as possible from first-hand experience. And afterwards, important step is, after you learn all this stuff, you take the time to write it down. It's like a business plan. It might be obsolete once you wrote it down, the second you wrote it down, but taking the effort to do this will force you to think through it and to have a clear goal in mind, which later on can be adjusted. But fool yourself into thinking you know and you have understood, but just this last step of communication. You write it down, you hand it to the client, and they're like, yep, this sounds like something I said. And then you can go from there. So how do you find out if a project is a good fit? It's easier if you come out from the outside, but maybe if you're inside the company, you might want to think, can we really do something about this? And it's basically, you just take a look at the budget, the goals, and the general topic you want to handle. Questions might look like, what is the company working on right now? What part of the project does this thing we're discussing fit into? Why was this project starting in the first place? What is the pain we're going to solve? Let's not focus on the dashboard, but what will happen once the dashboard is in place theoretically? What triggered it? What painful events? Like, was there a month where everybody saw that money was being lost? Was there maybe a spike in traffic where, you realized that everything's going out the window? Why now? The timing is very important regarding context. And of course, like, if you come out from the outside, you want to know that the people do see value in the project. It's good for yourself because they're paying you, and it's good for the company because, like, they know they're receiving value. What's the budget? What is a company going to put into something? Because this tells you if they have thought this through. If they have, they know, like, we can afford so much to make so much. It's really straightforward. And finally, when are they looking to get started? It was important for me for planning, but there's the difference between important projects and urgent projects, and something important usually is not really urgent. If it's urgent, this might be a red flag. So after going through this, all these questions are usually answered in half an hour, just talking to one person, the project owner. And being sure that you can actually do something, you need to dive deeper. Like, I was packaging this initial research and planning into something I called a road mapping session. Basically, it's about 3 hours of talking, and afterwards you have enough learning to know approximately what you're going to build and show a few ways which might lead from the point you're at to a brighter future for the company. And in general, there's about 4 people you want to talk to at the company. It might be easier if you've got an outsider view. If you are working somewhere right now, you might think of maybe 2 or 3 people which cover one of these roles. So there's the project owner. Maybe it's you. It's the person who wants this thing to be built. It's the guy you want to succeed. Very important is the business owner perspective, the C-level. Like, they don't care about the data pipeline you built. They care about how the company will be doing in 2 years. And they care about making the numbers right for the talk with the investor next month. So you want to learn from this person as much as you can about the business. Or if you can't grab the CEO, maybe you just ask the project owner, like, imagine you meet the CEO in the hallway. What would they ask you? Like, what usually bothers them is the business side. And these 2 are really the most important. If you have discovered you're good, if you've got extra time left, you can go into details. Very interesting is hearing tales from the trenches. Like, the people who are handling data right now, probably it's some poor analyst drowning in Excel sheets and just being too busy to have any real problems, because every single week they need to deliver the reports to every single person in the company. And just listening to them, like, maybe they've got some tales about data being wrong usually and what they do to mitigate this. This might be very important down the line. And the engineering side, maybe you want to learn about the current stack, constraints, how big is the team, how much time do they have, do they even want to learn a new tool, or are they maybe comfortable in some language? Very important. So this is just the general idea of learning as much as possible of the context. You can dive into each of these directions as far as you can. By the end of this, you should be quite certain about what's going on, what the value is you can provide, what the company is looking at, what the business goals are, who will benefit from your work, this is very important, and how to make it happen. And this is not tech. Like, you just want to know what you want to change, and after you do, then it's time for tech. Then you can think like, oh, maybe they've got a team of Python developers, so yeah, let's look at Luigi, because it's a good data flow engine. And in the best case, from my experience, at this point, you don't have many choices to make. Like, you already know the constraint. You don't need to choose from X tools. You have 2 alternatives, and it's very straightforward. So if I had started again a few years ago, me personally, I started out freelancing before I knew what I was doing, and then slowly I found my way into consulting and like niching down into one proper spot. So what I would have taught myself at this point is, once again, learn about the company as much as possible. You want to sell yourself. You want to help the person who are working with to sell themselves. You want to understand the business because you don't want to end up with a project which is a success for you because people paid you, but afterwards it's dead and it goes nowhere. You want to have successful clients. And think back about sword fighting. You want to have a goal in mind. You want to keep learning, and you want to cultivate this business mindset as much as possible and aim for results. And for all of this, it helps if you have a process laid out, because just doing things, well, it might not work out. So I think we still have some time left, and this is approximately the proportion of tech to business, which I like. 50 minutes have been about what matters. Let's dive into tech right now. So let's talk about tactical advice. First of all, I'm sorry the slides are fucked up, by the way, but I hope it doesn't bother you. Don't do home-baked scripts. The temptation is really big to just say, I can do this in a Python script, and then there's like a second Bash script, and they'll probably run one after the other. If one fails, then I'll send myself an email. You are at this point reinventing the wheel. You're not thinking about all the things which can go boom overnight, and it's just so much better to build on something people have put together over years. So my point is, you should know about workflow engines. Workflow engines is, in general, you can think about it as make files for handling long-running tasks. And all the good stuff, they've got dependency management. You will have logging and alerting. Failures will be handled gracefully. Monitoring can be built in. And there's a whole zoo of them out there. Airball, Pinball, Airflow, Pinball, Luigi, all kinds of disgusting stuff for Hadoop. My advice is, if you are in doubt, just take a look at Luigi. Luigi is pretty minimalistic. It's easy to maintain. It's by Spotify. It has been handling lots of data. It has been published in 2009. It's a good thing. And it's Python. It's nice. It will probably do what you want, and if you got it, you can go from there. If you're building such a pipeline using whatever tools, good properties are to keep it small and lean. Just as I said in the beginning, you want to create value. You want to start somewhere when you can finish something, and it actually does something useful. And you want to focus on learning as much as possible about the business. And do it iteratively. So don't expect that you get it right from the first try, but make it easy to iterate. What you usually do with Luigi, you get the data into one place. So you've got your operative databases, and you just have something which takes the data out and puts it somewhere safe, be it S3 or some kind of data warehouse. It's a good place to start. So, in conclusion, I urge you not to dive into tactics. Think about the business first. Don't think about the tech. And aim at creating business value. And you can do this by understanding the business, the people, and what they want to achieve. This might take some time up front, but it's worth it. And afterwards, you will be very, very glad you did it. And regarding the tactics, once again, make it easy to learn, iterate, get data into one place. Don't use home-baked scripts, and consider Luigi as your workflow engine of choice. So at this, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.